Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Hollywood Accounting. This ain't your ordinary podcast, folks. I'm Kendall King CPA, but around here, you all can call me the Money Man. And let me tell you, I've been crunching numbers and making those dollars make sense for those in movies, music, sports, gaming, tech, and yeah, even those viral video folks y'all all know and love. Now, don't get twisted. I ain't just your regular bean counter. I'm the architect of financial dreams in the land of flash and cash. From the big screens to the streaming scenes, I've seen it all. From blockbuster budgets to the nitty-gritty of a viral TikTok. So here's the deal. Every episode we're diving deep, like submarine deep, into the money magic behind the entertainment madness. We're talking about big movie bucks, concert cash flows, sports team treasures, gaming gold mines, and how content creators stack their paper. And hey, it ain't just me talking at you. We're bringing in heavy hitters, the real movers and shakers, to spill the beans on how they keep their financials in the spotlight and out of the red. But hold up, there's more. We've got the latest and greatest in industry news, insider tips for the aspiring moguls, and because I love y'all, we're answering your burning questions too. Whether you're in the biz, dreaming of the spotlight, or just here for the labs of learning, you're gonna wanna stick around. So let's kick back, crack a smile, and dive into it. Welcome to Hollywood Accounting. All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of Hollywood Accounting. I am your host, Kendall King, the Money Man. And like I mentioned before, what we're going to be talking about are things that are happening in the entertainment space that, are interesting, and things about those situations and how the money impacts everything. So please just sit back, relax, and this one is just gonna be me, so you guys are gonna have to deal with that. Sorry in advance. But what we'll do is we've had a huge weekend, this past, all of February, honestly, so far. And so what we'll do is, I'm just looking at my notes here. What we'll do is we're going to be talking about some of those major things. So yes, the Super Bowl, yes, the Grammys. But before we get to that, I just kind of want to start with some not so good news. And that is starting with the closing down of an agency. And you understand why as we start getting into it. And again, how the financial components and everything impacts everything. So this past Friday, an email was sent out to the staff of A3 Agency. And this is what the email said. I'm going to read it. At least a blurb from it. After careful consideration and evaluation of our circumstances, we regret to announce that A3 will be ceasing its ongoing operations effective end of day Monday, February 12th, 2024. This decision was not made lightly and comes after extensive analysis. Despite our best efforts, we find ourselves unable to continue operating in a sustainable manner. Basically, what they said is, we broke, y'all. We can't do it. We can't do it no more. And the thing that really is impactful here is that this agency, obviously, like with the other agencies, it's not just them that is affected by this move, right? All of those agents, sure, but even the clients, now they have to find, new representation and everything like that, right? But I'm gonna keep on going because this is really huge. They started back in 1977, but sadly they'll kind of see their end here in 2024. But to be fair, additional sources did say, as reported by Deadline, that there will be an effort to launch a new agency to bring over the agents and clients that A3, currently has, and are trying to, extend that a little bit more. But last year, we saw them, really selling all of their major, or a lot of their major, components to a private equity firm called Gersh. But clearly that wasn't enough to kind of save, their business and their company. And so, this is where it's being, led to. Their chairman, Adam Bold, has been hit with very, very interesting allegations and accusations of drug abuse and just really steering the ship in the wrong way. And so he's going to have to, figure out his, legal situation, because he's got a lot of lawsuits and a lot of bad press to attend to in the near future from this. But let's talk money. What does this mean? Why did it happen? And obviously, it's a clear impact of mismanagement on the executive side of things, right? Which is why I highly emphasize the importance of having a good financial architect, a good financial executor behind what you're doing in your business, because this could be you pretty soon if you don't, make sure you understand what's going on. But the major thing, I believe, in my opinion, what I believe is the bigger aspect of all of this is that, these are direct ramifications of the strike that happened last year. So there have been literally months and months and months of like talent that was not being paid because they were striking, right? So if they're not getting paid from anything, and they're specifically trying not to find work and do anything, then that means that the agency is also not getting paid. So if the talent's not getting paid, the agency's not getting paid, but the agency still has bills, just like the talent still had bills and everything. So if you're not running on good margins, then that particular time frame of not having, any cash coming in with that, and at the time not really knowing when it would really change, it honestly obviously left them very vulnerable. And I suspect that this might not be the only instance of this happening. Is just the first one, that's really big as it relates to, a very well-known agency. But yeah, I mean, this is what happens when, these negotiations take the time that it takes. The new effect of streaming, honestly. And I think that is where a lot of people would be kind of focusing the energy on, why the negotiations even took that long, or why they were so impactful this time around. And it really is because of streaming. Streaming introduced this new model of making money that was not thought of before, not properly thought of in previous, agreements. And so, the Actors Guild, Directors Guild, all of them, they were trying to make sure that they were getting their fair share of what was going on and the cut and everything that they have. However, the studios are pushing back, saying, "Hey, it's not as much money as you think," type thing. So it was definitely a push and pull. They eventually got to an agreement, and I'll do a video on that specifically. But they eventually got onto an agreement. But again, it was months and months of non-revenue generating months. And just imagine if you or your business had non-generating revenue months, how long would you last? Essentially, that's what's called that runway, right? How long is your runway? And clearly for A3, it wasn't that far along. So streaming again came in, was very, very competitive, and knocked them out the box. And I think one thing that we also need to think about is that technically all negotiations for all of the guilds aren't done yet. So IATSE is another a guild that surrounds the media industry. So again, last year we saw the directors, the writers, and the actors. This year, the crew, so the accountants, but also the people behind the camera. They are also going to start fighting for their rights this year coming up. Their contract, I believe, is done in July. And so we will potentially see another strike coming from them if they don't feel like they are at they're not getting compensated reasonably for what they're doing. And they only have fuel, because of everything that was done last year and all the agreements that were made. So, going into this, I'm pretty sure we would probably expect them to really, try and, push the envelope. Honestly, if it was me in those negotiations, I probably would be pushing to do the same. All right. So, in other news, I just always like to kind of give my viewer, what I'm watching. And I think last week, my title of the week is probably going to be Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I actually did not assume the best of that in the beginning, honestly, but Amazon Prime, Donald Glover did a really great job of, getting my interest and essentially taking the concept of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and, kind of creating a world around it, partnering up, two potential, spies, assassins together and, keeping them in these 2-unit cells and giving them missions and everything like that. It's actually pretty cool and, a nice spin on it. At first, I was among the people who just thought they were just going to do a straight, copy and paste. But actually, I really enjoyed this show specifically, even though it ended in a cliffhanger. But it was it'll probably see season 2, in my opinion. But it was a great movie. A great series because it went further beyond just, the boom boom pow of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which was a great movie. But it also went very deep into the complicated relationship of, marriage, as well as being business partners with that person. And it does really like open up and really see who people are and question, what we're willing to, to compromise. No, not nowadays. We are, really talking about how, accept me as I am type thing, right? But this one really pushed the limit and pushed the borderline on that. But again, this isn't that type of show. I just, that type of podcast. I just really liked it, and so I just wanted to bring that up. And the money aspect of it again is seeing that season 2. And one thing that may also happen is, Mr. and Mrs. Smith specifically, when it was created, it had $110 million budget when it first came out, and made 4 times as much in the box office, but didn't see a sequel. However, with the success of this show, this might urge a sequel to the movie to come out pretty soon. Who knows? I just say that because you see with Suits. Suits is, a television drama that, it recently found its legs, again, on the second run via Netflix. Honestly, that's where I remember seeing it on TV back before, but I never really got into it. And I always had it in the back of my mind of like, let me watch that and White Collar as well too. So I always had it in the back of my mind, like, oh, let me watch that. But then I saw it on Netflix and I just binged it and it was great. I loved it. And I'll probably watch, whatever the spinoff is going to be. And so I just say all that to say that you can see how one hand, washes the other, as they say. And Amazon did a great job of capitalizing on existing IP, turning it into something that was still kind of refreshing, still something new, and it's not just a direct ripoff of what was there before. And did a great job where I think, again, a season 2 is not out of the question at all. And so speaking of Amazon, moving into some other moves that they're making, because again, that was a great move that they made. And I think this other move is something that I personally and professionally have an opinion on very strongly, to be fact. But they are paying attention. They're paying attention to the trends. They're paying attention to what is, happening nowadays. With the streaming wars, everybody and they mama got a studio, a streaming network and everything like that. And obviously, there's only so much content that can be watched by a person at a particular time. And then obviously, if you're giving up, your whole content library for, $10, $20 a month, and you're fighting everybody else, it gets really hard to try and, get those eyes, especially nowadays when content creators and, YouTubers, Instagrammers, they're the ones that are getting most of the views. So I remember having a conversation literally not too long ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, maybe it had to be 2 months ago, because it was before this announcement. And I was talking to a friend and colleague who works at Roku, and telling them that, in my opinion, I think that the next big wave, the next big thing that studios should be doing is focusing on content creators, focusing on leveraging their platforms, leveraging their followers, and creating a new series and or maybe even a platform, or just including their content on their websites, on their platforms as well. And there's already a built-in audience. People have a lot more love and dedication and viewer and like fandom over their content creators. And I think that like studios will see the benefit of that, again, because a lot of these content creators are making their content with next to nothing. They don't have the $110 million budgets, right? And so honestly, a $50,000 budget is actually pretty cool. It's pretty extensive for some of these content creators. So imagine if throwing 100,000 to them to allow them to create their content, and you host that on your platforms, and they drive all of their content, their viewers over to your platform, the success in that. Honestly, I've actually recommended to the content creators and individuals that I know to kind of create their own stuff, so that they can keep that, that relationship with their fans and monetize it a lot better. But for those who don't want to go down that path, again, I think studios should follow the lead of Amazon in this case, where they have, or they are, is not confirmed, but there's an estimated $100 million competition show deal in the works with Amazon Prime and Mr. Beast, and we all know Mr. Beast is the top YouTuber on net right now, and essentially coming together with a package and a deal where they're greenlighting his competition show. And the genius part of it is that the first episode will air on his YouTube, obviously getting that initial crowd, that he has, hyped up for what they're watching, everything like that. But then every show after that, reportedly is going to be on Amazon Prime. So what that does is essentially get you at the source, and then say, if you want more of this, you got to go over here. Genius. That is a great way to, again, make that transition from, from one platform to the next, and you'll see the growth from there. So I really do think that Amazon will see great success on this, especially when, a lot of competition series right now, people like them. People adore them, honestly. The challenge, even when you look at Netflix's Real Life Squid Games, like that was a very successful, show. I have my own reservations on the production, and the money that they decided to give out on that. But that's more of a, on the studio side, it's like, why would we do this? But again, it was a successful show. I actually also like one of their new shows called The Trust, which is like a reality competition series as well, which is pretty cool. Now I'm thinking about doing a video on that, but essentially the competition series is going good. Unscripted television is definitely the cheaper television. And it's honestly, what people are really getting into nowadays, specifically with the content creators as well. So just throwing it out there that I think that Amazon is definitely on track with a lot of seeing these trends and capitalizing on those in the best way possible. Now, Amazon is doing great, but also Disney has done a great job. And in a genius move to continue extending beyond just their studios, obviously they got, their, Disneyland, Disney World, all the things that they have. But now what they're really doing is going into gaming. Another thing that I stand by vigorously and I've been, definitely on the know and the focus for the past few years, honestly, is that gaming is going to be huge. Gaming Web3 is going to be huge, and being able to connect with your friends and different people from different places and enjoy, a game or just enjoy an experience is definitely where, the world is headed, honestly. And so with with Disney, they're partnering with Epic Games. And they're partnering with Epic Games on what they say is an all-new, open, persistent, and social universe that will bring Disney stories and experiences to life. Interoperating with Fortnite, and it's more than 100 million active players and creators. Fortnite is, like crack. to kids these days when it comes to gaming. And so obviously we all see the integrations that Fortnite does to continue keeping it relevant, to continue understanding the new generation that is coming up and creating content, creating programs for them to be able to capitalize on what they got going on. So with Disney already, implementing some of the stuff like Star Wars, Marvel characters as well. So it's like Disney's already on the wave. So it's like, look, we see success in this. We see, growth here. So we're going to continue doing more of this stuff. And they put down 1.5 billion as an investment to make this happen. Obviously, this is still subject to regulatory approvals. Similarly, when Disney purchased Fox back in the day that they couldn't get the sports networks. And actually, I worked on that deal as well to, split those out. But that's just a slight accounting flex. Don't mind me. But that's still open for approval. And again, I think this just really shows how big the gaming industry is going to be, the blockchain industry, the Web3 industry. Because again, everybody's focused on this social piece. Everybody's focused on communicate, the community and getting people together, and the gaming aspect of it and the gamification of just things in general. And so if the gaming industry wasn't taken seriously previously, it definitely is going to be start taken seriously going forward. So that Disney is one. I'm trying to think of. I know Netflix has started adding, games as well to their arsenal as well. So again, I'm just saying that this is, it's not just me crying wolf anymore now. I wish I had the podcast back then, because then you would have known my opinions back then. Because right now it just seems like I'm just saying it because it's happening, and that's not the case. I 100% believed in this before. So that's the gaming. And I guess technically gaming can go into sports, sporting, right? So let's move into our sports segment, where clearly the biggest thing that has happened, the biggest event, honestly, all year, that'll probably be happening other than the presidential elections, is the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl happened this past weekend. Congrats to the Chiefs. It was a great game. They did a great job of getting back, and they won the second year in a row for their title of the greatest football team, in the world. So, although I love sports, specifically football, I love football. We're not talking about the actual sport of football this time around. We're just going to be talking about the impact and the money surrounding the Super Bowl. So anytime an event like the Super Bowl shows up in anybody's city or town, you best believe that, it's going to be increases in prices. It's going to be, like the money will flow, essentially, right? The economy of that place is going to boom, because you're going to get an influx of people who are coming to spend that you don't normally have, especially because, again, a lot of these people are traveling and they can't have certain things readily available. So they're going to be, spending money on travel related things and personal things, but also set it in the landscape of Las Vegas, the city of sin. You about to start making even more money. So I'm sure Las Vegas was definitely excited to host the Super Bowl. And I think it was just announced that next year it'll be in New Orleans. So we'll see, how it impacts New Orleans, next year. But I think I really wanted to focus on the winners, in my opinion, of the Super Bowl. And so we already know that the NFL is the biggest winner, just due to the sheer amount of money that they're able to generate, because they weren't just doing Super Bowl. There were things all week that activated and turned into something for Super Bowl. So I would just say that we're going to put the NFL aside right now. I want to talk about some of the things that I saw after, from watching a game, from, just being an observer and understanding what's going on, that the advertisers really trying to get the most out of what they are spending. And the things I wanted to bring up specifically, my first thought was, Marvel. Again, Disney, you're doing it again. But what they did was they had an ad on, on Super Bowl, one of the first ads that came up actually. And what they did was it was a very like a short teaser. It was a teaser to Deadpool and Wolverine movie, right? And it was like it was just enough to get you excited, to definitely get a fan excited. It's like, oh, okay, great, this is coming, this is happening, boom, boom, boom. But it wasn't enough for you to really understand. So it forced you to go and want to know more. And what they did was they kept that time very brief. So again, I'm hearing numbers that people are paying $7 million for 30 seconds of ad time. I don't think it was 30 seconds. And so it had to be something a little shorter than that, honestly. But let's just say it was 30 seconds. But they literally did the very, very minimal that they could do. But within the actual the ad, what they did was they said, check out the actual, video on our, online. And so I went to YouTube and I searched it up. So I'm actually about to search it up right now. See Deadpool and Wolverine. And I think Ryan Reynolds posted it literally a few minutes right after. And I'm looking at it at this very moment. He already has 11 million views on it. And so where in my opinion, I think was genius was because they used that Super Bowl ad, paid their money there, they got as short of a time as possible. And then they directed all of that traffic over to their own content, site platforms that they control. And so, we'll do the numbers on how many views equals how much money, but obviously they made some of that money back, because these 11 million views that they got in one day, just on the AdSense, that they're getting back from YouTube, they're making a little bit of money there. They got a huge amount of hype for it already because Deadpool in itself is just a very anticipated, movie to want to watch. But yeah, it's just fascinating to see, again, 11 million, not even a full day yet. Or I guess it is a full day. 11 million that they were able to capitalize on because of that. And I don't know, I just really thought that was a genius idea to do, and definitely something I would have been like, good job, let's make sure to do that again, going forward. I think another winner of the Super Bowl yesterday, also this past weekend, was Beyonce. Beyonce via Verizon was able to, her actual commercial was about breaking, how she breaks the internet and everything like that. And, Verizon did a great, job of saying, you can't, the networks is so strong, you can't break Verizon. It was really cool. It was well thought out, commercial. But what she also did with it was connected that also to something that was happening in real life, where, at the end of it, she said, drop the music. And it debuted 2 songs that she had, and also the date of her new album release. And so it was all of that was really, really, I think, genius in a way to be able to capitalize on that commercial. Her songs are now the top 2 on, I believe, the charts right now because of that. And I think it was really genius in my opinion. So that's my opinion on that. And then lastly, again, I'd be remiss to miss Usher. So now I saw a post on LinkedIn, and I thought that this was a very, very good way to explain it. So I'm not even going to take credit for it. But Joe Papagliano, I follow him on LinkedIn, and essentially, he breaks down what, the whole thing about, the whole Super Bowl and artists performing for free. I actually had a client friend of mine years ago, Slay, formerly known as Taja Riley. But she had a a campaign to, push for, the performers to get, more money and everything like that. And the thing back then was like, it's all about exposure. And that is true for the artist, and so we'll talk about that here, how that, translates to the dollars and how you can make the most of it. But again, that fight was more so about the background performers who aren't necessarily getting much of, that same level of exposure and everything like that. So going down the list and looking at his post, he just says that Apple Music pays the NFL $50 million annually to sponsor the Super Bowl halftime show. So that's already $50 million NFL guy. I told you they're the big winners of this, show for sure. But Usher won't get any of that. Instead, he'll perform for free, leveraging the exposure to gain followers, sell tickets, and increase streaming numbers. So I'm gonna skip a little bit of it. Again, that nobody's getting paid. What they do get is a production budget. So they're able to, put together a show and do what they did. And as you saw, last night, this past weekend, is that, he was definitely, spending quite a bit of money on, the whole production in itself, brought out a lot of his friends and, contributors on his music, Alicia Keys, Ludacris, Lil Jon, will.i.am, Jermaine Dupri, her. What else? Who else was there? If I missed y'all, my bad. But I'm trying to. I think that was everybody. I think we can go with that. But essentially, what happened was, they used that $15 million, the budget, to do what they got to do and cover all of those, workers that makes up the show. But the exposure that they get in return. Now, brands, like I mentioned before, that let's look at Disney again. We can look at Verizon. They paid, again, $7 million for a 30-second commercial. But Usher essentially now has, I think he ended up with 15 minutes, but 15 minutes of uninterrupted commercial free, opportunity. And what I love, because he dropped his album a couple of days before, that I listened to, and it was very enjoyable. He might actually end up getting the R&B album of the year with that, but he did a great job with, really melding in a lot of different artists and a lot of different fields to be able to, attract to different audiences. And I think that it was intentional, knowing that he's got the Super Bowl commercial, knowing that he's about to reach worldwide, and having a palette of music that, with this new album, because when people see him on the TV, they're like, oh, okay, I know some of these songs. Oh, that's cool. Oh, he got a new album out. I'm listening. And again, he has songs that hit a lot of different genres other than just the straight old school R&B that we all know. And Usher has done a great job of, developing his music and his self over the years to be able to fit the current landscape of what's going on. But he also, again, Joe in his post highlights some of the previous, performers that, for example, Justin Timberlake saw a 534% increase in music sales after his Super Bowl. Travis Scott's performance fee doubled from 500 to 1 million after his Super Bowl. Jennifer Lopez and Shakira gained 3 million Instagram followers after their Super Bowl. And so again, you take that time and you do this particular job for free in order to leverage the exposure of the largest event in the world. And so again, Usher has put out the new album. He has a tour coming up. He previously was, just done really great with his residency in Las Vegas, and all of the other countless things. His name is being talked about consistently, and he earns every bit of it, for the performance that he's done for his career up until now. And he's just him and his team are continually, making the most out of it. And that is the key. Whenever it comes to, specific things like this, where you're doing things for free, but you just got to make sure that you're thinking about the big picture and positioning yourself. And so, again, I expect, actually, let's look at, maybe where his songs are right now. If we go to Spotify, I'm just going to go on Spotify and look up Usher. All right. Sure. Okay. So yeah. So I had checked, and this is I didn't take no screenshots, so believe me, but it is what it is. Before the Super Bowl, he had 38.8 million monthly listeners. Now I'm looking right now. He currently has 40.7 monthly listeners. So just in that short amount of time, he was able to get 2 million additional monthly listeners to his stats here in Spotify. And again, this is just Spotify. This isn't counting any of the other platforms that he's on. And his song "Standing Next to You," which is on his album, he had already there was a single he dropped already with Jungkook. And again, I might be saying his name wrong, so I apologize if I am, but it's a really good song. I love it. But that song has over 386 million, plays and streams. And if you look at some of his other songs, like for example, My Boo, which he performed with Alicia Keys last night on Spotify, it has 684 million views. And again, My Boo was created years ago. And so Standing Next to You, which was, probably put out maybe a month or so ago, already has more than half of those views, of those streams that, My Boo has already had. So it's just like, those are the things to consider when you're doing things like this and you're dropping, music, and you're planning your whole, career and your whole, drop, around events like the Super Bowl and taking advantage of it as much as possible. So again, I think that Usher for sure took advantage of this very, very, very well. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing what else is coming for him and all of the artists and everybody who was involved with this. How that goes throughout the year and going forward. But again, speaking of all these music artists, let's also remember that the Grammys wasn't too long ago. And so the 66th Grammy Award ceremony happened. And I just wanted to make sure I nodded to the fact that this has happened. And, similarly to, getting that exposure with the Super Bowl, getting an award like the Grammy, an Oscar, streamy, all that stuff is great because it gives you that recognition. Again, that exposure, it puts you on this particular platform for everybody to see. And again, how you take advantage of that is how you take advantage of it. But getting an award, I know there's a lot of, back and forth on if, establishments like this, truly recognize the value of, the art that they're actually judging, and just historically how, it has been very underserving for, underrepresented communities. But again, once we have that, we get that, we're able to monetize it as much as possible and take advantage. That's the key. So with that being said, I want to shout out all the winners who won the award, but I wanted to make two specific things. Like the Victoria Monet was given the Best New Artist Award as for the Grammy, which is interesting because she's been doing music for years. But again, you take it and you just make the most of it. You take her name is now being discussed right now a lot more than it has been. She's been a songwriter, performer for the longest, and now she's getting that recognition that she deserves. And so I'm just interested to see how her team, capitalizes on it. I have a few ideas myself, but I'm really interested in seeing how that happens. And again, special shout out to Killer Mike for his sweep in the rap category. I think that for me specifically, I've never been really deeply into his music, but I've always respected his stance in the community and where, he has been, an advocate for a lot of the community itself. But after winning the awards, I was like, you know what? All right, let me take a look. And shout out to my client, Luke, because he did some, work on there as well. So he got himself a Grammy. So shout out to him. But I listened to the album. And I was like, oh, I definitely see how, this got rapper, album of the year for sure. Because he also, again, incorporated and understood that this is the day and age for the music. And he, again, really reflected and made the most of the opportunities and the features that he brought on. And again, it was really good music without changing much of like what he stands for, like at all, So it's just like it was great to be able to get that message across and be, recognized for the success. But again, shout out to my client Luke. That's more to come, brother, more to come. But thank you all for spending time with me and just listening to this. I think that, again, I'll continue talking about things. I think I know the other thing I wanted to mention was the Michael Jackson estate selling their rights to his music to Sony. But maybe we'll discuss more of that as the as the estate and the transaction goes through, and I'll probably just update you guys more on that in the future, because again, I don't have much information on that just yet. But again, thank you for stopping by. This is Kendall King, the Money Man, with Hollywood Accounting, and thank you for tuning in.